The fire in the great hall had burned low, spitting embers that drifted like dying stars across the blackened beams. Rain hammered the slate roof above us, a steady, indifferent roar that drowned out the distant shouts of men still celebrating their victory in the outer yard. Inside, only the two of us remained. She stood in the center of the stone floor where the rushes had been swept aside hours earlier. Iron manacles encircled her wrists, linked by a short length of blackened chain that had already rubbed raw crescents into her skin. The same heavy links bound her ankles, forcing her steps to small, reluctant shuffles. Her gown, once fine silk the color of winter sky, was torn at the shoulder and muddied at the hem. Strands of pale hair clung to her damp cheek. She did not tremble. Not visibly. But I could see the minute quiver in the muscle along her jaw, the way her chin lifted a fraction higher every time my boots scraped the flagstones as I circled her. I had not spoken since the guards dragged her in and shoved her to her knees before the high seat. I had only watched. Watched the way she refused to lower her eyes even when the iron collar was locked around her throat. Watched the way she breathed, shallow, controlled, as though each inhale were a deliberate act of defiance. Now the hall was empty save for us. The last servant had fled with the tray of untouched wine. The doors had been barred from the outside at my order. I stopped in front of her. Her gaze lifted slowly. Gray eyes, the color of storm clouds over the northern sea. No tears. Only a cold, steady burn. "Lord Riven," she said. Her voice was low, careful, the accent of the high valleys still crisp despite everything. "You have your prize. What more do you require?" I did not answer at once. Instead I reached for the small iron key that hung from a cord at my belt, the same key the captain of the Reavers had pressed into my palm with a lewd wink before he left. I turned it between my fingers once, twice. The metal was still warm from my body heat. "You are no prize," I said finally. "You are forfeit. By the old law of Ashkril, the defeated lord's daughter becomes the war bride of the victor. Your father's head decorates the south gate. Your brothers lie in the river mud. Your keep is ash. And you," I gestured with the key, a small arc that made the chain between her wrists clink softly, "are mine." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Then claim what is yours and be done with it." The words were steady. Too steady. I had heard that tone before, on battlefields when men knew death was certain and chose dignity over begging. It stirred something in me, anger, perhaps, or recognition. I stepped closer. Close enough to smell the rain on her hair, the faint metallic tang of blood from where the manacles had bitten. I lifted my hand. She did not flinch. Not when my fingers brushed the side of her throat, not when they found the clasp of the iron collar and worked it open with a dull snap. The collar fell. It struck the stone with a flat, ringing clang that seemed louder than the rain. She exhaled once, sharp, involuntary. Her shoulders dropped the smallest degree. I knelt. One knee to the cold floor. I took her left wrist in my hand. Her skin was fever hot against the chill of the iron. I fitted the key into the lock. Turned. The manacle sprang open. I caught it before it could fall, set it aside. Then the right wrist. Then the ankles, one after the other. Each lock released with the same dull snap. Each chain slithered to the stone in a soft metallic sigh. When the last cuff fell away, she remained perfectly still, arms at her sides, head bowed just enough that her hair curtained her face. Red marks circled her wrists like twin bracelets of bruised dawn. Her breathing had quickened. I rose. Stepped back. Gave her room. For a long moment nothing happened. Then she lifted her head. Her eyes were different now. Wider. Brighter. Something raw lived behind them, something that had been locked away longer than the iron had held her body. She looked down at her bare wrists. Flexed her fingers once, slowly, as though testing whether they still obeyed her. Then she looked at the discarded chains. At me. And she spoke a single word. Please. The syllable hung between us, fragile as frost. I did not move. She took one small step forward. The torn silk whispered against the stone. Another step. The chain at her feet stirred faintly, nudged by her bare toes. "Please," she repeated. Her voice cracked on the second syllable. "Put them back." I felt the air leave my lungs in a slow, controlled stream. "You beg for your chains?" I asked. The words came out rougher than I intended. She shook her head once, sharp, almost violent. "Not for the chains." Her gaze locked on mine. "For the choice." I waited. She swallowed. The motion was visible along the pale column of her throat. "All my life I have been given no choice. My father chose my tutors, my gowns, my silences. My brothers chose when I spoke and when I was to be quiet. The reavers chose which tower to burn first. You," her voice trembled, steadied. "You chose to take me. And now you choose to free me. But freedom without power is only another cage." She lifted her wrists toward me. The red marks stood out starkly against her skin. "If you leave me unchained tonight, tomorrow the hall will fill again. Men will see a woman without marks and assume I am already broken. They will test me. They will touch. They will laugh when I flinch. And she closed her eyes for one heartbeat, opened them again. "I will not beg them. I will not scream. But I will die inside long before any blade finds me." Her arms remained outstretched. "I would rather wear your chains," she said, "and know they were placed by the one man who asked nothing of me yet. I would rather bear your mark than wear the invisible ones they will carve into me with their eyes and their hands and their pity." Silence pressed against my ears louder than the rain. I looked at her wrists. At the raw crescents. At the way her fingers trembled now, not from cold, but from the effort of holding them steady. I looked at her face. And I saw it then, the truth she had just laid bare. Not surrender. Strategy. Survival. The same cold calculation I had used on battlefields when the odds turned against me. She was choosing the lesser wound. Choosing to control the shape of her own defeat. I reached down. Slowly. Deliberately. I gathered the nearest length of chain. It was heavier than it looked, cold, damp from the floor. I lifted her left wrist. She did not pull away. I closed the manacle around it. The lock clicked shut with a sound like a door ceiling. Her breath hitched. I did the same to the right wrist. Then knelt again. Ankles. One. Then the other. Each snap of the lock seemed to echo inside my own chest. When the last cuff was fastened, I stood. She flexed her hands once. The chain between her wrists gave its small, familiar clink. She exhaled a long, shuddering sound that was not quite relief, not quite grief. Then she stepped forward 2 small steps and rested her forehead against my chest. Not an embrace. Not surrender. Simply contact. The lightest pressure. Enough to feel her heartbeat through the sodden silk. Fast. Alive. "Thank you," she whispered against the leather of my tunic. I did not move to hold her. Did not speak. I only lifted one hand and rested it, very carefully, against the back of her head. Outside, the rain continued to fall. Inside, the fire had gone to embers. And in the space between us, something new had been forged, not in conquest, but in the quiet, terrible agreement of 2 people who understood that survival sometimes wears iron. Neither of us moved again until the first gray light of false dawn began to seep beneath the barred doors.